in 1453. They took the most magnificent cathedral of the entire Orthodox Christian world, Hagia Sophia, and shamefully sinfully converted it into a masjid. Is that your Islam? It's not mine. You can take that Islam and throw it into a garbage bin. That's not the Islam that came from Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. That's not the Islam that came from Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But when the Christian patriarch in Jerusalem invited him to perform his salat in the Christian church, he said, no, it's a time of prayer, but I will not pray in the church. You go outside and pray, because I don't want it tomorrow to come when someone will come and take over this church and transform it into a masjid. This is my Islam, that is yours. And you pledge your allegiance, the whole of Muslim India, to that Khilafah. That's one of the big weaknesses of the Khilafah movement. What they should have concentrated on was the Khilafah state, not so much the Ottoman Khilafah. Iqbal, I'm quoting from Naim Qureshi on page 384. Iqbal is not happy with the Khilafat movement. He's not supporting the Khilafat movement. He's out of tune with the Khilafat movement. No. And this is what he says. Iqbal, I quote, pinned his hopes in a revitalized Turkey, which had, in his opinion, not only shaken off its dogmatic slumber, but had also passed from the ideal of a Khilafah state to the real, which is a Republican state, a transition which entails keen intellectual and moral struggle. No, Iqbal, you're wrong. Turkey alone, says Iqbal, among all the Muslim countries, had embarked on the way of creating new values. Therefore, the Turks were perfectly sound in their view that the institution of the Khilafah, as understood in the traditional juridical sense, was anachronistic, and that an elected assembly, which was suited to the need of the time, was not incompatible with the spirit of Islam and should replace the institution of the Khilafah. Parliament. Pragmatic reconstruction of his own religious thought, which happened to be compatible and even synonymous with those of the followers of Mustafa Kemal. And so we say to you, Iqbal has made a mistake, and we must not be criticized if we say he made a mistake. But Iqbal saved himself, as every great scholar would do it. Listen to what he says. It must, however, be remembered, there is no such thing as finality in philosophical thinking. And as knowledge advances and fresh avenues of thought are opened, other views, and probably sounder views than those set forth in these lectures, are possible. Our duty is to carefully watch the progress of human thought and to maintain an independent, critical attitude towards it. These are golden words of Iqbal. You'll find it in my book, Iqbal and Pakistan's Moment of Truth. Now then, is Pakistan a Khilafah state? Answer: Pakistan says of itself that it is a Republican state. That's the name of the country, Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So it is a Republican state. And a Republican state, by definition, is a state in which Allah is no longer Al-Hakam. So you can do all the kinds of acrobatics you want to do with your objectives resolution. All the acrobatics you want with your objectives resolution. A Republican state is by definition a state in which Allah is no longer Al-Hakam. You do not govern and rule on the basis of Al-Haq or truth, but rather it is the people who decide. That's a Republican state. But it also declares that it is an Islamic state. And there's only one way to interpret the word Islamic, that's all, only one. And that is that Pakistan is claiming that it is a Khilafah state. Full stop. Once you say you are an Islamic state, it implies that you're claiming to be a Khilafah state, full stop. You can't be a Khilafah state and also a Republican state. So someone has to solve this problem in Pakistan. You cannot be a Khilafah state and also a Republican state. Well then, what do we do? Answer: we have to recognize that Pakistan is a member of the United Nations organization and has remained comfortably a member of the United Nations organization from the day it was born. Ahmad Sukarno took Indonesia out of the United Nations, but no one ever in the history of Pakistan even raised the subject. So Pakistan has been comfortably a member of the United Nations organization from day one. And therefore, supreme authority does not lie with Allah. The Security Council of the United Nations, Article 25 and 26 of the Charter of the UN, if you want, you can go and check it out. They control power. If the United Nations give you an order to stand up, the Security Council, you got to stand up. Allah could tell you sit down, but if the Security Council says stand up, you have to stand up. That's a Republican state. Pakistan has been a member of the International Monetary Fund from day one. No one has ever shown any discomfort in Pakistan. None. No leader, no government, no party. If I'm wrong, kindly correct me. I'd be very happy to know. The International Monetary Fund says, Allah made this halal, but we are making it haram. That's there in the International Monetary Fund, the Articles of Agreement. Go check it out. Go and check it out. If you make haram what Allah made halal, it is shirk. And if you accept what they have done, you are now a part of the shirk. It is the one sin that Allah will never forgive if you die with that sin. Maybe this explains the hadith that you never hear anybody quoting, but it's there in Sahih Bukhari. That on Judgment Day Allah will say to Adam alayhi salam, take out the people for Jahannam. And Adam alayhi salam will ask, how many are they, O Allah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say to Adam alayhi salam, out of every 1,000, take 999 for Jahannam. It's only shirk which can explain that, nothing else. This hadith this, what is it called now? A hadith which comes from Allah, what do you call it? Qudsi, Hadith al-Qudsi. It's actually sending a warning that there is going to be universal shirk in the world, so watch it. Pakistan is using the same bogus, fraudulent, utterly haram paper money, in consequence of which the masses are now miserably poor, while an elite drives around in expensive cars and live in luxurious villas and send their children to British and American universities, and they have a villa, yes, in Los Angeles, and they have another one in Miami, and oh yeah, because they're the shoeshine boys of those who use the monetary system to impoverish the masses. The Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund make it haram to use gold as money. Even a schoolboy could understand. Even a schoolboy with the intellectual acumen of a schoolboy would be able to understand. The reason why they made gold haram is because so long as you have gold in the market, their bogus monetary system cannot exist. Even a schoolboy could understand that. So is Pakistan a Khilafah state? The answer is no. Can Pakistan become a Khilafah state? For Iqbal, and only Iqbal, nobody else, it is possible for Pakistan to become a Khilafah state at a certain point in time. Only Iqbal, nobody else. Nobody else talks on the subject of Gog and Magog. We now come to the end of the lecture, that the moment in the historical process is approaching. And when that moment occurs, the backbone of Gog and Magog will begin to break. And as that backbone begins to break, a window of opportunity is then opened. And in that opportunity which now emerges, perhaps the best people, the people who are best placed in the world of Islam to wage a struggle for the restoration of a Khilafah state is Pakistan. It's Pakistan. It cannot be the Arab world. Why? Because our Prophet prophesied the Arabs are going to be destroyed. And he linked the destruction of the Arabs to Gog and Magog. We don't have the time to quote that hadith. Now let us come to the last part of the lecture, that the Khilafah state can be restored. And when the Khilafah state is restored, it won't be a member of the United Nations. It will have no superior authority over it. It won't be a member of the International Monetary Fund. No. It will be using dinar and dirham as money. Yes. The Khilafah state can be restored. But before we turn to the hadith, which explains why and when it can be restored, I have a surprise for you. A bitter surprise. That there are people in the world today who are struggling to establish a Khilafah state. That's what they're doing. A bogus Khilafah state, but a Khilafah state. They want the state of Israel to become a Khilafah state. And when the angel said, remember, O Allah, you're putting mankind on the earth to establish the Khilafah. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. Are you placing on earth those who will cause the historical process to be filled with fasad and bloodshed? that the historical process is now going to be corrupted and contaminated by those who want to establish a bogus Khilafah state? Yes, the angels knew it was going to commence with Pax Britannica. And with Pax Britannica you had fasad all over the world. Fasad is not only that which corrupts, but corrupts in such a way that it destroys. The British wanted the Khilafah state to be surrendered. And in order to get the Khilafah state surrendered, they needed more than Mustafa Kemal. Because they knew the world of Islam cannot be hoodwinked forever by Mustafa Kemal. They knew that the surrender of the Khilafah state is not possible in the Arab world. So they turned to India. They turned to Muslim India. And they had to get Muslim India to surrender the Khilafah state in order for them to achieve the objective of the Muslim world surrendering the Khilafah state. And that's what they did in India. They surrendered the Khilafah state. And they did it mostly because Iqbal made this mistake. It's going to be hard to swallow, but it has to enter into the record that Muslim India recognized the new leadership that emerged after the Khilafat movement collapsed. That if Britain wanted Muslims to surrender the Khilafah state, they're going to have to pay a price for it. Britain never wanted Pakistan to be born. No. Britain detested a Pakistan being born as an Islamic state. Hindu India did not want a Pakistan to be born. No. But there was no way they could stop it. The leadership of the Muslims recognized an opportunity that yes, if we surrender the Khilafah state, the price that they'll have to pay is Pakistan. If they want us to surrender the Khilafah state, the price that they will have to pay is Pakistan, which is a republican state. The British bit their fingers in anguish, and the Hindus bit their fingers and so on, but they could not avoid it. And so that opportunity that was grasped resulted in the creation of Pakistan. Yes, it's a republican state. Yes, there's shirk everywhere. When I went to Pakistan as a student in 1964, $1 US was worth 1 rupee, 75 paisa. $1 US today is worth about 105 or 110 Pakistani rupees. And if the government of Pakistan were to make a step towards Russia, it might go to 200. That's how they punish you. Pakistan was born, therefore, as a republican state, and the British had to concede it. Can this Pakistan become a Khilafah state? Is it possible for it to become a Khilafah state? Because of the way Muslims of India responded, I am of the opinion that when the war now takes place, the nuclear war which is coming, could come even before the US elections, because they're afraid of Trump, that a window of opportunity is now going to be opened, because there's going to be a crack in the backbone of Gog and Magog. And a movement can now be launched by those who, according to Iqbal, who have Chashme Muslim, Doon kar aslaf ko kalbo jigar. Go search for those who have that courage, that backbone made of steel of the early Muslims if you want to restore the Khilafah state. Our Prophet said, hadith is in the Sunan of Abi Dawood, and with this we'll end. He's talking about events in the historical process in Akhir zaman. And he said, he's speaking to his companion Mu'az ibn Jabal, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And he says to him, Mu'az, Umranu Bayt al-Maqdis Kharabu Yathrib. Wait until you see Jerusalem emerging, built up, center stage in world affairs. And at that time, look to Medina. When you see Medina, Kharabu Yathrib, in a state of forlorn desolation. How you say that in Urdu? Forlorn desolation. Give me a nice Urdu expression. Sabina, huh? Kharab? Tabawi. No, that's not adequate enough. Forlorn desolation. Huh? Abandoned. No, I want to get an Urdu expression because there are lots of people in Pakistan are going to be listening to this lecture. Okay, maybe Urdu doesn't have it. Umranu Bayt al-Maqdis Kharabu Yathrib. When you see Jerusalem built up, shining center stage in the world, then look to Medina. And when you see Medina in a state of forlorn desolation, Kharabu Yathrib, then Kharabu Yathrib Khurujul Malhama. Then look, because the next event that is going to come, major in the historical process, will be the Malhama. The Malhama. Has the Malhama occurred as yet? No. No. Where is the proof? No. Where is the proof? The Prophet ﷺ spoke about the Malhama when he said in the hadith of Sahih Bukhari that the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. And people will fight for that gold. But 99 out of every 100 who fight for that gold will be killed. Meaning, this would be a unique war in human history. A war like no war has ever been before, which would kill 99% of combatants. This is the Malhama. And everyone who fights for that goal would say, I'll be the one who will survive. So when they enter that Malhama, they don't know who's going to win.
Can you explain the Malhama?
The Malhama is a great war, a great war, prophesied by Nabi Muhammad ﷺ, which will occur in Akhir zaman, the end time. The Christians know it as Armageddon. Armageddon, a great war. I asked the question, has the Malhama occurred as yet? And I went to another hadith which throws light on the Malhama. That there will be a war in which 99% of all combatants will be killed. And I've said, no war in history has been like that. None. This is a unique war. Nor can this be conventional warfare. No. This has to be warfare using weapons of mass destruction, like nuclear weapons. And he said, no one will know who will survive, the one who will survive. But the Muslims must not touch that goal. Those who wish to wait for a mountain of the metal to come out of the river. A literal interpretation have the right to do so. We've understood this as religious symbolism, and we have said this occurred in 1974 when an ocean of oil underneath the river began to function as a mountain of gold, and the petrodollar was born. But never accept Imran's opinion. No, until you're convinced that he's correct. And so the Malhama is now around the corner. But what happens after the Malhama? I believe we've settled the case that the Malhama has not as yet occurred, the one prophesied by Prophet Muhammad. We've settled that case. That Malhama is coming because Russia is challenging the mountain of gold. It's challenging with bricks. So what happens after the Malhama? Listen to what he said. And NATO can take it and put it in their pipe and smoke it. He said, Khurujul Malhama Fathul Constantiniya. That the great war of the Malhama would be followed by the conquest of Constantinople. That is why they changed the name of the city. That is why they made it illegal to even use the name of Constantinople. You go to Turkey and you use the name Constantinople, you can be arrested because they wanted to hide what the Prophet said. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453 was bogus. Islam has never ordained jihad against Christians. Where did that rubbish come from with a capital R? Is that your religion? The Ottomans waged bogus jihad on the Christians. Did the Christians attack them? Were they responding to the Christians? No. And when the Ottomans took the city of Constantinople, it was brave and courageous Christians who were defending it on that day. And they were defending themselves against an aggressor. And so I have said it, and I don't care who differs with me and who is annoyed and angry. The shuhada who fell on that day were the Orthodox Christians who died in defending Constantinople. They were the shuhada. And you tell me that is the conquest of Constantinople prophesied by Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Please go and do your homework. Don't make a fool of yourself. I'm sorry if I call you a fool. I apologize. Please do your homework. I don't intend to insult anybody. No, it's not my way. Go and do your homework. The conquest of Constantinople in 1453 is not the conquest prophesied by Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Not only because it was bogus, but also because the conquest of Constantinople comes after the Malhama, not before. The Malhama has not occurred as yet. It could occur before the US elections. Prepare yourself. A nuclear war. Most of us will die. And we are proud that the Orthodox Christians of Russia are brave and courageous, and they're not afraid of death. If a Christian people could be unafraid of death, why should Muslims be afraid of death? Why? The conquest of Constantinople, which comes after the Malhama, indicates that the backbone of NATO is being broken. Because NATO or the Western Christianity wants control over the Bosphorus. The control over the Bosphorus they had for 500 years was through their client state, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were clients of the Western world. And when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, then the secular state of Turkey became a member of NATO and controlled the Bosphorus again for Western Christianity, for NATO. So they have controlled the Bosphorus for hundreds of years now. And when the Malhama takes place, and then the conquest of Constantinople occurs, the implication would be that Gog and Magog are being broken. They're not completely broken yet, they're being broken. Well then, how will this take place? Answer, we go back to Surah Al-Kahf. We go back to Qarnayn, Zulqarnayn. Zulqarnayn means two ages. In one age, Gog and Magog are checkmated. He built a barrier. But in the second age, Gog and Magog will again be checkmated. This is the Quran. NATO, you can take that and put it in your pipe and smoke it. Islamic eschatology is telling you that you're going to be checkmated. This is the Quran. And when Gog and Magog's back are being broken, the implication is that a window of opportunity is now opening. If Iqbal were alive, he would say to you, this is the time. The Muslims of Pakistan are perhaps the best placed in the world to launch a movement. As soon as the war begins, stop whatever you're doing. Forget about Brailvi and Deobandi fighting and all of this nonsense. All of this nonsense. Stop it. And all of the Muslims must now launch a movement for the restoration of a Khilafah state. Even if you don't succeed until Imam al-Mahdi comes, at least you're making an effort to do it. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may forgive us if we made any mistakes, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might bless Dr. Iqbal for the greatness of his scholarship, forgive him for his mistakes, and grant that these words may be truths that will be accepted by Allah, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might bless those who now wage an effort to restore the Khilafah state. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين.
A sea, to see that one time we have water in
Yeah.
what event is that?
The question is, where do you locate the information about Gog and Magog going to a sea? A link of Gog and Magog with a sea, with a body of water. The answer is located in the Quran, that the Jews had been asked by the pagan Arabs, how can we tell whether this man, Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, is indeed a prophet? So the Jews, the rabbis responded in Medina and said, ask him these three questions, which only a prophet can answer. My book, Surah Al-Kahf in the Modern Age, describes it. One of the questions was asked him about the great traveler who traveled to the two ends of the land. And the answer was given in Surah Al-Kahf. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ. And they questioned thee, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, about the great traveler, Dhul Qarnayn, who traveled to the two ends of the land. Tell him, I'm going to tell you something about him. We established him with power on earth, gave him therefore the capacity to pursue whatever effort he chose to pursue. So he decided on traveling in the direction of the setting of the sun until he came to a body of water. So that's the farthest he can go. And the body of water was dark and murky. So visibility is very shallow. And there he came across the people, and Allah said, what are you going to do? How will you relate with them? How will you use power? Zulkarnain's power rests on faith. So when power rests on the foundations of faith, how will power be used? And he said, those who are guilty of acts of oppression and wickedness, I'll punish them. So power will be used to punish the oppressor. And when I'm finished and they return to you, you will also punish them. So there'll be harmony between this world order and that one. And those who have faith and are righteous in conduct, I'll treat them well and protect them and so on. Then he traveled in the opposite direction until he came to the end of the land, which of course has to be another body of water. And there he came across the people, لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ مِنْ دُونِهَا سِتْرًا, for whom we had provided nothing else as a covering to protect them. So maybe a people living a primitive way of life. And Zulkarnain used power very compassionately. He left them as they were. Then he traveled in a third direction to a pass between the mountains. We're able to locate this geographical location in the Quran, because we know that when he reached to that pass between the mountains, it was there that he encountered Gog and Magog. There. The people asked him to build a barrier, and he built it barrier made of iron.